starting a trucking company in Canada and wanting to go to the United States, or if you're starting a trucking company in Canada and only want to travel inside of your own province or inside of the country of Canada, there are certain steps that you have to take for the trucking authorities and permit side of the equation. So, for the trucking and authorities side of the equation, depends on how far you want to go from where you're situated. So trucking authorities and permits really depends on how far you're willing to go. As a Canadian carrier, if you want to stay inside of your own province, so British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, whatever the case may be, you first want to incorporate, okay, your business. So, in other words, you want to do your business registration. The next thing you want to do is you want to get yourself a safety fitness certificate from the province in which you're in. So, that would be something like if you're from Ontario, you want to get yourself the CVOR. If you're from Quebec, you need to get yourself an NIR. If you're from Alberta, for example, you want to get yourself the safety fitness certificate, and so on and so forth. You have to do the same thing for BC, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and moving down the list. The next thing you want to do, this is only if you want to stay inside of your own province. Okay. The next thing you need to get is also your insurance. And your insurance needs to have 3 clauses inside or 3 policies inside of the certificate of insurance for most shippers and brokers to work with you. So you have to get yourself general liability. You need to get yourself auto liability. And you need to get yourself cargo coverage. The cargo coverage should be a minimum of $100,000. And that should be the minimum that you get for insurance. These 3 things are what you need if you want to stay inside of your own province. If you want to go to one other province, okay, so let's say you're from British Columbia and you want to go to Alberta, you're going to have to get 2 more things in order to go across the provincial boundary legally. So you need to get something called apportioned license plates through the IRP program. And the IRP program is the International Registration Plan. And this is a way for the provincial governments and state governments to share revenues when it comes to license plate fees and renewals that happen every single year for it. So this is something you have to renew every single year. Likewise, if we go back up here, the CVOR, for example, you have to renew every single year. Every province has its own rules and laws and applications when it comes to renewal of certain licenses, permits, and authorities. Another thing you have to do is you have to get yourself an IFTA license. And this is for the International Fuel Tax Agreement. And you have to renew these decals that you get, these stickers that you get every single year. So you do have to renew every single year your IFTA license. You have to also report fuel. You have to report fuel every quarter on this IFTA license. And this has to happen in order for you to be considered legitimate inside of this program. Okay? Now, if you want to go to the United States as a Canadian carrier, you have to go down a few different routes. Okay? In addition to what I had just mentioned, in terms of the trucking authorities and permits that are needed, there are some additional other things that are needed, but specifically for the trucking authorities and permits, in addition to all of the stuff above, you also have to get yourself an MC/DOT number. This can be done through the FMCSA website, or you can get someone like Truckadium to do it for you. You have to get yourself a process agent or a BOC3 filing done. You have to get yourself a UCR registration done. You have to get yourself an FID, FEIN number, FEIN, TIN, one of those type of numbers from the IRS. It's a way to claim a tax treaty that exists between Canada and the United States. And it's a mandatory number that you do have to get. And of course, in addition to all that, you still have to have the, general liability insurance, auto liability, cargo coverage. That all exists as well. Those are other things that you also need in order to be considered a legitimate carrier between United States and Canada. Okay. Now, in addition to this, there are some additional licenses that you may need to get depending on where you are wanting to go. Okay, so one of those is called the HUT for New York, which is the Highway Use Tax Permit for New York. You have to get this if you want to use New York roads, interstates, highways, etc. Another one that has this use tax permit is Kentucky. So you have to get yourself a KYU number. You also have to get yourself a New Mexico permit, Oregon, and Connecticut. Okay, those are the 5 states that have these additional permits that are needed. In addition to this, in order to communicate between the border, if you're going from Canada to the US, you need to get yourself a SCAC code. In order to communicate with the border when you're going with a load from the USA back to Canada, you need to get yourself something called a carrier code to communicate with CBSA Canada border. And the SCAT code is to communicate with the CBP USA border guards, or physical border, excuse me. So these are the things that you mandatory need. Okay. In addition to this, you also have to consider that you have to get yourself the transponder. Now, the transponder is for a border crossing. This is in addition to any kind of tolls that you would pay on any kind of roads or bridges that you would be crossing the border with, depending on where you're crossing in North America. But you definitely need to get yourself a transponder. You can get one-time permit fees that you pay, and these are, just under $15 US per trip. But it's not worth it. You should definitely get the annual fee transponder that you actually renew every single year. Okay, and this transponder can be gotten through the DTOPS system via the CBP. And this DTOPS system is for this decal and transponder registration stuff that you have to get. And this one is going to cost you just under $410 USD funds. So just under 600 Canadian funds. Okay. Just a reminder on the UCR side, this is something you have to renew every single year. The BOC3 filing is one time, and the MC number registration is one time. In addition to all of this, the last mandatory thing that you have to consider is something called the drug and alcohol clearinghouse. Okay, and this is via the FMCSA, and it is mandatory as well. Okay. So if you have all of these trucking permits as stated, you are good to go to start doing business between Canada and the US if you have all of these things listed. If you want to only stay in Canada, you only need to go as far as getting these 5 things. Okay. If you want to only stay inside of your province with your trucks, you only need to get these 3 things. Okay. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a like, a comment, a share, and please reach out to us if you need any assistance in getting any of these trucking authorities and permits. Truckadium is a consultant as well. We are not just a training school or a dispatch training school or a freight broker training school or a corporate training school. We also do consultative things in terms of trucking authorities and permits. We can also help with bond requirements for anyone that wants to get a bond as a participating broker for US loads. Whether you're from Canada or the US, you do need to get the surety bond. That is very important for freight brokers. But for trucking companies, this list is what you need to get started and be an actual legal carrier on the road to do commerce on roads in Canada and the United States. Thank you very much for watching.